In this video, I'm going to talk about how to maximize your practicing if you only have a little bit of time. If you like this video, be sure to look down below and click the red subscribe button, and you can also click the little bell icon to get notified about the videos that I upload every Saturday morning. And most importantly, if you think this video will be helpful for others, please share it with them. The more people that we can get this information out to, and the more people that I can help improve their clarinet playing and their musical lives in general, the happier I am. So in this video, I'm going to be talking more towards like the amateur players who don't necessarily want to be professionals, but they still want to continue improving at their instrument, and maybe they're playing in a community band or something like that, or even a high school band, but you don't necessarily want to like major in clarinet when you go to college, but you still want to give a good solid contribution to your band, and you want to constantly be improving your skills, but you're busy with other things and clarinet playing isn't necessarily the top priority in your life, so you're busy with other things and you have maybe just a little bit of time to dedicate to it, and I want to talk about how to get the most out of that time. Another quick disclaimer: if you are trying to be a professional and ever get paid to play your instrument, then you need to really commit the time to practice. There's no substitute, no matter how much knowledge you can gain through watching YouTube videos or taking lessons. If you don't spend the time practicing to implement that, then you're never gonna make it to a professional level. I would recommend that professionals or people who are practicing to be professionals have to practice at a very minimum 10 hours a week of individual practice time. More is better, of course, for everybody. The more you practice, the better you'll get, to a limit. It is probably possible to over practice, but that's a topic for another video. So if you are trying to be a professional, then don't listen to the stuff that I'm saying in this video. Be sure that you're getting in as many hours as possible, with probably 10 hours a week being the very minimum if you want to be a successful professional musician. Now, if you're just wanting to improve and make a good solid contribution to your band or orchestra, then probably 3 hours a week would be the minimum for that. And that might even include your time in rehearsal. So if you have like an hour-long rehearsal a week, then maybe just 2 hours of individual practice time will be enough. And that's what I want to talk about in this video, is how to get the most out of some small practice sessions so that you can improve. And then eventually, maybe as you get better and you want to do more practicing, then you can improve even further. But really, 3 hours a week is enough to get consistent growth and be on your path to being able to contribute more, be more confident on your instrument, and more confident with the music that you're playing. So let's say you're in a situation where you're playing in band and you have a program for a concert that you're preparing for. And typically most bands, whether it's a high school band or a community band or something like that, have maybe on average about 3 months to prepare for a concert. You might have some like smaller concerts for like an assembly or an outreach performance that's made up of those pieces, but typically for like the big showcase, like thinking the big winter concert or the big spring concert, you usually have about 3 months to prepare for that. But you sort of get the music and you're starting to rehearse it, and of course the first few rehearsals are really rough because the conductor may just be like trying to get through it, so you have an idea of how it goes and you don't really know your parts that well yet, so you get sort of beat up in those first few rehearsals, and then you go to the practice room and you're like, oh my gosh, I have like these 6 pieces and there's so much hard stuff in all of them, and this is going to take so long for me to figure out. And that can be really discouraging when you're looking at this mountain of a program and you're thinking, I only have like 30 minutes a day to practice. How am I ever gonna possibly learn all this? And trust me, I totally know what that's like, because I had a similar situation when I was in school, except I was playing like a concert a week and had to get all this music learned in like the 2 hours a day that I was practicing on my own, in addition to the like 4 hours of rehearsing. So I totally can relate to that, and I know how that is, and it can be intimidating. But the secret is to have a plan, be consistent and sort of just gradually work your way through that. If you do a little bit every day, then before you know it, you'll have it all put together and you'll be feeling really good about it. So the first thing is to make sure that you have sort of a big plan for what you're gonna do over the time. So I think the best thing to do is have some kind of regular practice schedule, whether it is like every day. Maybe if you're a morning person, it's like 7 to 7:30 in the morning is my practice time. Or maybe you do it when you come home from school or work, so sometimes in the evening you're gonna get like a half an hour of practicing in. Or maybe you do it even right before bed, but have some kind of like sacred practice time where it's like between these hours every day, that's going to be my practice time. Or maybe even between these hours, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, that's going to be my practice time. And I think it's best to do every day, but as long as you're doing at least 3 times a week, you should still see improvement. It is important to do it more days for less time is better than doing 1 day for a really long time. So don't do just like 4 hours of practicing on one weekend and then don't touch it until that next weekend. You want to be getting as many days in a row as possible, or at the very minimum 3 times a week, 3 separate practice sessions. And even if it's 30 minutes each of those times, that's going to be better than like 2 hours on one day once a week. So now that we have sort of our big plan organized and we know when we're going to be practicing, the next step is to figure out what we're going to be doing in those practice sessions. So I think it's best to sort of split that up into 3 sections. I'm going to do it off of a 30-minute practice session, but you can do sort of the same thing if you're doing like an hour or 2 hours, where we just split the time into 3 parts. So the first part is warming up. It's super important to get those fundamentals down. And even if you have like this mountain of music and you're like, no, I need to like learn these notes and get these hard parts down, if you skip your warm-up, it's going to hurt you in the long run. So the warm-up is your time to do some long tones, get your sound really the way you want, figure out how to play through the notes really smoothly and in tune and consistently. You do some scales to get your fingers moving and maintaining that good sound. Do some articulation to get your tongue moving and figuring out how to shape notes. And I bet 90% of the time, you'll find that if you do a really good quality warm-up, that the music that you're working on that day will actually feel easier. Now the next third, the second of the 3 parts, is to really isolate and dig into the details on a section. This is where it may be a good idea to sort of pre-plan what you need to work on. Maybe when you're in rehearsals, make a list of the sections that are really rough or the parts where the conductor is like, come on, clarinets, really? Like, you got to figure that out. Those kind of sections, make a list of that in rehearsal. So then when you're practicing, you know exactly what you need to be working on to really get. So in the second third, that's what you're going to go after. And this is going to be probably your most hard work section, but it's also going to be the section that will pay off on the music that you're playing immediately. So what you're going to be doing is you're going to be taking those tricky passages and you're going to break it down and simplify it, go slower, use a metronome, change the rhythm so that you can practice getting your fingers really smooth with some different like dotted rhythms and different note groupings. You're going to figure out what the phrasing actually is, figure out where you're gonna breathe, really like dive into all of the details of the music and make sure that you're feeling super confident that you know how it goes. And this is where you do your slow practicing to really get your fingers moving in the right direction and have everything feel super comfortable, super easy, and really relaxed, so that you're taking those hard parts that used to be stressful and frustrating and you're simplifying it down until it's very easy. Once you've simplified it down enough to a way that it's easy, whether that means going half tempo or slower than half tempo, whether that means even if there's like some really tricky intervals, you sort of play it as long tones so you can just figure out how to play through those notes really in tune and really getting them to come out the way that you want. You get it simplified down to where it's comfortable and easy, and then you can gradually start working it back to the way that it should be. Now, if you're just doing this in 10 minutes, depending on how tricky the part is, it may not get all the way up to tempo or all the way perfect on that day, But you're going to be practicing every single day or 3 times in the week, and you can come back to it each time and keep making progress on it. Even if you only do these slow, comfortable reps in your practice and you never get close or all the way up to the end goal, it'll still make it feel so much easier in rehearsal, and you'll have a much better shot at it in performance. Now for the final third, and I think maybe if the middle third expands a little bit and this last third gets a little bit less time, I think that's okay. But this final third is going to be to sort of practice performing, practice integrating those tricky bits that you worked on. And this is sort of where you challenge yourself and sort of test yourself and see how much progress you're making and what you still need to work on. So if you practiced these 2 measures that are a really tricky run for your middle 2/3, and you feel like you made good progress on that, then for this last third, for the challenge bit, you can go back to the beginning of the piece or the beginning of that section and play through it and see how those tricky 2 measures go, and see if you've made improvement on it or see what you need to continue working on in it for the next time that you practice. The other thing that this final third can be really good for is learning new music. So maybe you're sight read through a new piece that you haven't rehearsed yet, or you look through the new piece and sort of really figure out how it goes and get it under your fingers and start on it so you can start identifying those tricky places a little proactively before the conductor's yelling at you. So no matter how much time you have to practice, if you're practicing at least 3 times a week and you're really being intentional and thoughtful about how you're practicing and splitting that up into the warm-ups, the isolating and improving the tricky bits, and then the integrating and challenging yourself further, then you're going to really start to improve faster and start to get down those things that you didn't think that you had time for. And if you just keep doing that every single day, before you know it, things are going to really start to fall into place and things are going to be easier for you. So that's sort of the practice plan for if you don't have tons of time to really practice. And I also want to include a couple bonus tips or bonus ideas for you to be thinking about. So the first thing that will really help you maximize your time when you're doing this practicing is to realize that music is really repetitive. So if you spend a lot of time getting down one tricky bit, there's a pretty good chance that that's going to come up again later in the piece. So you may feel a little discouraged that you're like, oh man, I've been spending all week on this 1/8 measures, but that might come up several more times. So in fact, you may have learned a whole 1/8 of the piece or 32 measures of music instead, because that repeats later. So it's never time wasted when you're really getting these things down. And most of the time when you spend time on a little chunk, that's going to repeat either literally or maybe even a similar thing, but it's going to make it easier when it comes up for you later. Another thing that you can do to sort of help realize that also is spend some time studying the music on its own. Oftentimes, for me especially, I feel like getting the instrument out and really dedicating to a practice session is a lot of time and a lot of effort that I don't always have or want to put in at that moment. But you can get a lot out of just studying the music. So maybe again, before bed for just 10 minutes, you pull out your music, you look through it, and you're like, oh hey, measures 8 to 16 are exactly the same as measures 54 to 62. That's nice to know. So when I practice that, it'll be good over there. Sort of looking through and just visually identifying the things that might be tricky and the things that you want to work on. Visual practicing is really, really powerful and can go a long ways for actually improving the stuff that you're playing when you come back to play it after doing some visual practicing. If you know how the piece goes, then you're 90% of the way there to being able to play it, and it's just a matter of getting the instrument to do how you know you want it to go. Okay, just 2 more things that I've sort of mentioned, but I just want to make really clear and really drive the point home. The first is, no matter how much you're practicing, it's much, much, much more beneficial to have things be really controlled, comfortable, confident, consistent, and steady. So you want to, rather than rushing through something and struggling through the tricky bits, you want to make sure that you're simplifying it, going slower, and making it easy and steady. Even if you never work it up back to where it's supposed to be, you're going to be much better off the more repetitions you get it in being comfortable and steady. Number 2, everything is hard until you know how it goes. Think back to like 5th graders playing Mary Had a Little Lamb. It was a huge struggle for them. But for you, it would probably be extremely easy to do that, and you wouldn't even have to put any thought process into it. Same thing as like a professional or a very advanced player might not have to put any thought or effort into the things that are tricky for you now. So if you're taking every day and just digging away at these things a little bit at a time every day, you're gonna be making progress and things will be easy eventually. So don't get discouraged by something that's hard now. It's only hard because you don't know how it goes yet. Awesome, I think we packed a ton of detail into this. I hope that it's helpful for you. And just remember, even if you only have a little bit of time to practice each day or even just 3 times a week, if you're really diligent and thoughtful about it, you're gonna become better. So just make your plan, pick your sacred practice times, stick to it, be deliberate about it, and you're gonna get better. I wish you the best of luck with your practicing. Thanks so much for watching this video, and I'll see you in another video.